Hello and welcome. We're the Aussie Guys. I'm AJ. Here with me is G. How are you, G?
Yep, getting better. Second one for the night. Coming into my own now, mate.
And we've got a couple queued up for tomorrow, but that's the season, isn't it?
It's good to be back with you. Not. Sorry. Holiday was
Only
better.
because you're in a beautiful sunny place. Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, we have Aaron Lesher from Hogshaven for our Washington Redskins preview. I had him on last year. It was fantastic to chat to him, and we've got him on again. Aaron, a very warm welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on again.
Oh, it's fantastic having you on. And Redskins, well, man, there's so much change. But let's just start with 2017 and just do a bit of a quick recap. So it was the fourth year under Coach Jay Gruden, and the Redskins, well, you know, the year all in all was a bit disappointing, especially the second half of the year. They finished with a 7-9 record. It was also the sixth and last season with Kirk Cousins on the roster. We're going to talk about him a little bit, as you can imagine, after tagging him for 2 consecutive years. But what was your take on 2017, Aaron, all in all?
Yeah, well, it was certainly disappointing. I think the team thought they had some talent and were able to compete, but they just got bit by the injury bug. They had, I think, the highest number of combinations among the offensive line in the NFL, and so it was a bit of a revolving door there. But definitely disappointing. I think they thought they could make the playoffs with the talent they had on the roster and the team and the chemistry and all that. They just got a bit unlucky. But yeah, certainly something they want to change this year, and I think they're quietly confident.
Yeah, and they're not in the easiest division in the league. I mean, when you're in the division that produces the Super Bowl champ, that says it all, almost.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the NFC East is definitely one of the toughest divisions, if not the toughest. Obviously, preseason always, what you think in the preseason always is different from what pans out in the regular season. But obviously, you have the Super Bowl champs in the Philadelphia Eagles. They haven't really lost a step, and we'll see how Wentz comes back. And then you've got the Cowboys with Zeke back fully healthy and some new pieces there, and then the Giants with Barkley and new head coach and Odell back healthy. So yeah, it's gonna be a dogfight for sure. We'll see how it all shakes out though.
My word. So let's talk a little bit about free agency first up, because the free agency period. Well, look, Kirk Cousins went out the door. I'm interested in. Well, G was going to talk about quarterbacks. Do you want me to not talk about Kirk Cousins, G, or do you want me to talk about Kirk? What would you like me to do? Are you going to focus on Alex Smith?
Oh, no, I'll talk about both of them. But
will you?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously Alex Smith came in via trade, and part of that deal also saw Kendall Fuller leave the building, and you signed Pernell McPhee. It was really a bit of a depth signing more than anything else. Orlando Scandrick came into the building, as well as a 5-year, $40 million deal for ex-Seahawk Paul Richardson, who's quite a handy player. But Alex Smith and Kirk Cousins. So what are your feelings on the whole Kirk Cousins thing? Because, I'm a fan of Kirk Cousins. I think he's a good quarterback. A bit underrated, actually. It's sort of like the whole way that the Redskins treated him just seemed a little odd.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a, I guess you could say, toxic relationship. Both people were saying kind of the right things in the media, but ultimately, I think the team realized a bit ago that it was just going to be a stalemate, and Kirk was going to leave, and there was going to be another team that was going to make a more attractive offer, or multiple teams that were going to be able to make more attractive offers than the Redskins were willing to give. And so they made a business decision and decided to go ahead and make the move. I think as fans, it was definitely a shock when it happened. I think it was January. It was before the Super Bowl, so it was I think January 30th or something like that. That the news came down that Alex Smith had been acquired. So obviously at that point you realize that it's over and Cousins is gone. I think really when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the fans were able to just for better or for worse, just be somewhat relieved, because the the drama that had been going on for at least 2 years, but kind of even longer than that, was just over. And then there's a new guy in town, and he's immediately signed a contract extension. He's going to be here for a while, and there's no drama. So I think in the ideal world, we would sign him to a long-term deal 2 years ago. He would have been cheap. Everyone would have been praising the foresight of the Redskins front office for locking him up and all that kind of stuff. But that's not how it panned out. So ultimately, it's just kind of a relief for the fans that it's over. We've got a guy who is very competent in the building, and that's that. So we can just kind of move on.
Yeah, fair enough. And let's just touch on the draft quickly, because I know, look, we're going to go through the position groups, so some of these guys will sort of come up again. So, it was a massive need, certainly, stopping the run, which we'll touch on. I mean, that's kind of an understatement. And so Daron Payne at pick 13 in the first round, the guy is an absolute beast, and that's a fantastic pick. I'm sure that you're a fan of that one. But also, Darius Geis, who dropped and was remarkably available to you guys in the second round, is also a fantastic pickup. The other players that you picked up, I must confess, there's no names that sort of really jump out to me, but you might be able to tell me what ones you like or don't like. But, I mean, even just the first two picks alone makes it, in my mind, a good draft.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm totally with you on that because so I'm looking at my 2018 draft big board rankings, and I had Darius Geis as the 12th overall player and Daron Payne as the 13th overall player. And this is before the draft. So I really love Geis at LSU. I actually watched a fair bit of LSU football, and I think he's really, really talented. Just a mix of physical ability, just violence, running with athleticism, and I think can catch the ball actually pretty well. And Daron Payne is an athletic freak for being a 300-pound man, and he's very, very good at stuffing the run, unselfish player, which you kind of need at that nose tackle position. So I'm with you with the first two picks. I thought those were home runs, and the rest of the draft was just kind of was filling some needs and kind of building for the future. So the third round, they were able to get that back after the Alex Smith trade, which I thought was a great move. Just able to recoup that third round pick that they sent away to Kansas City. Got an athletic tackle, and he's not going to start, obviously, because we've got Moses and Trent. But he's developing for the future, very athletic guy. And then just some athletic players at fourth round. We took a safety that ran a 4.3. So there's some upside there. Smart player from Penn State, and then the 4th through 7th round, I think there were some interesting ones in there. But off the top of my head, I'm not again super familiar with that. But definitely picks 1 and 2 were A's in my book. And after that, if there's some interesting stories that come out, we had Tim Settle in the 5th round, who I think is another really, really big defensive lineman that can kind of clog the middle and be at least depth in year one. And then a wide receiver. That was the very last pick in the draft, Trey Quinn, who was super productive in college. And I think Jay Gruden is going to take quite a liking to him. So I think really good draft overall. But I'm with you that first round and second round address the two biggest needs, and we're also two really talented players. So it's kind of the best you can hope for when you go into the draft.
All right, so thanks for not talking too much about the guy. We still haven't come up with a formula where AJ can talk about people in the draft without sort of giving away any of the questions I've got to ask. But we'll go to the quarterback position. And as we spoke about, you did the franchise dance for 2 years with Cousins, and now he's gone, and what in comes the savior, does he? And like Alex Smith. So it's more about like with the exchange, what have you gained and what have you lost with the differences between the two quarterbacks? Yeah,
well, I mean, you can look at it as losing Kirk, but you can also look at it as, he was never really going to come back or never really going to re-sign. So you basically had nothing at the position. I mean, certainly you lose a guy that's proven to have produced in the system. He's put up really, really good numbers when he's been under Jay Gruden for 3 years, and a guy that knows the system. So you're losing that comfort in that those historical numbers to kind of fall back on. And I mean, I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's gonna, play up to par in Minnesota. We'll see if he can live up to those expectations that they have for him up there, because it's pretty much Super Bowl or bust with the team they have. And the question with him was always that clutch ability, the ability to kind of win in big moments. And yeah, a lot of fans here in DC were, just had the gut feeling when it came crunch time or when a play needed to be made, we would always kind of fall short with Cousins. So, I mean, some people would say the same thing about Alex Smith, but certainly, I don't think anyone would disagree with you lose a guy that's produced in the system. And so with Alex, you gain a guy has a really great pedigree. I mean, number 1 overall in the draft in 2005. He's more athletic than Cousins. He's, got a solid arm, and I think he fits Jay Gruden's system really well. So we'll see. Well, I mean, last year was his best year by far, and some people say, you're kind of buying high on him. I don't think he'll ever put up those numbers. He had Tyreek Hill, he had Travis Kelce, and Kareem Hunt, and all those guys. Maybe you're just buying high on him, and he's never really won anything. But I think people will be pretty surprised by how well he fits in Gruden's system and how quickly he picks it up. And I think he can put up numbers just as good as Cousins, if not better.
I was going to say, because when you look back at last season, mate, like Cousins' completion rate was 64.3. He threw 27 touchdowns, just a tad over 4,000 yards, and actually rushed for 4 TDs. Mate, with what he was throwing the ball to, that's incredibly impressive numbers, really. Yeah.
I mean, the talent around him and all the injuries we had to the O-line, I mean, I thought he played very, very well for what pieces he had around him. I mean, the other thing, though, to the Redskins' credit is I really think Jay Gruden is underrated as a play caller and play designer. Or not really play caller, but just offensive mind. If you kind of go back and watch some of the All-22 stuff, I mean, guys are getting, these guys like Ryan Grant, who's not on the team anymore, but, fairly pedestrian talent like Ryan Grant. I mean, he's getting wide open, and that's not really because of talent, just because of scheme. So there's definitely some credit to Kirk Cousins and what he was able to do and put up, really solid numbers with that cast and all the injuries. But then I think there's also, you need to look at Jay Gruden and how he designs plays and how he exposes matchups and helps the quarterback make the right call and get these guys open to make big plays when there's not necessarily, high level of talent on the field.
So with Alex Smith coming into the building, what Alex Smith do you want, or what fits the scheme better? Is it the Alex Smith that we saw last year that can throw the ball around? And we all know that having Patrick Mahomes bearing down behind you makes you do things that you're a bit out of your comfort zone. But he did show that he can do it. But as the season wore on, he sort of turned back a little bit into the Alex Smith we know. Is that the Alex Smith that Washington needs? That sort of doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't need to throw it down the field. He's sort of in that 10 to 15 yard range sort of a lot of the time. Yeah,
I mean, Alex Smith has been really, really good with protecting the ball. And I guess that's kind of a backhanded compliment because, his rap for so long was game manager. He only checks it down, check down Charlie, that sort of thing. I mean, certainly that's important at the quarterback position. You don't want to turn the ball over. You want to, give your offense a chance, and that was the knock on Kirk Cousins for so long, was that he would kind of make these really boneheaded decisions and had a high turnover rate. But no, actually, I think the Alex Smith that we want, that's going to be the best for this team, is the guy that was, willing to take those shots down the field, willing to trust his receivers to make plays. That kind of Alex Smith that we saw last year, and I think it turned out well for them. They made the playoffs, and when he was just kind of taking chances and playing fast and loose, that's when he put up the best numbers. That's when he was an MVP candidate for the first, almost half of the season. So I think Jay Gruden, with Cousins, he really wanted him to take more chances. A lot of the stuff that came out after Cousins left was that, there was designed shots to Josh Doxson and different guys and stuff that Cousins didn't want to take because he was too scared of throwing an interception. But I think Alex Smith, the talent is there, and I think the mental kind of makeup is there that he can take shots, he can build on what he did last year where he was playing so well. And if he does make a mistake, I think the coach is behind him that, and he has the confidence of the coaching staff that, they're not going to switch him out for Colt McCoy, things like that. So I do think we want to see the new Alex Smith, if you want to call it that, where he's taking more chances and throwing it downfield like he was in the first half of last year.
Okay, so the guys he's throwing the ball to, so obviously, Cousins is gone. With him went Pryor, and as you said, Grant's no longer there, who's just a guy. But just looking back at last year, especially the first game, like you could see that I think Pryor had, what did he have, like 13 targets or something like that in the first game, and they just didn't seem to be on the page. But I sort of had this feeling, and look, the fantasy side of me went out and grabbed Pryor because I just felt that when they start to click, this could be a really good partnership, but it just didn't turn out. Pryor, has his foot issues and whatnot, his ankles. So left in the building, the three guys mainly are Doxson, Crowder, and a sneaky favourite of AJ's here is Paul Richardson. So they'll lead the charge. Not a huge deal behind them as far as talent, but mate, if I'm wrong about that, please pick me up and correct me. So the expectation of those three guys playing with such an accurate quarterback as Smith is, especially with someone like Crowder, a guy that can get open, and he, like as you said, Gruden can get guys open, but Crowder's the type of guy that can do it by himself already. Very good route runner. So your expectations of these three guys mainly, with Smith in the throwing the ball to him?
Yeah, I don't think anyone is going to put up huge numbers, but I do like what we have, and I think that the guys that we have are going to be good fits in the system. The Redskins under Gruden and even under Shanahan, to some extent, have not been a team that has had like a dominant number one receiver. It's always been the team that's had a couple guys, 600-800 yards, 1,000 yards, that sort of thing. Not a dominant 1,500-yard guy, but that's not really what we need in the system. And I don't think we need a number one guy to emerge like Doxson to succeed and be a good team. I think Doxson, Crowder, and Richardson are all good at different things, so they all complement each other. Crowder's obviously the slot guy, the shifty guy, kind of exploits the space in the middle of the field. Doxson's the 50-50 jump ball guy with the 42-inch vertical or whatever. And Paul Richardson's the deep threat. He's got 4.4 speed, and you saw that in Seattle. I agree with AJ. He's underrated, and I thought that was the best. That and re-signing Zach Brown were the two best moves in free agency, other than Smith. But I think it's solid. There's no number one guy, but they all play their roles. And then behind them, I think you're right. There really isn't a big name, but I do, following the team as closely as I do, a guy like Robert Davis, who was a 6th-round pick last year, who's the cousin of Thomas Davis, the all-pro linebacker for the Panthers. He's an athletic freak that's been making some plays in camp. Mo Harris, Brian Quick, they both made some big plays last year. Trey Quinn, who is Mr. Irrelevant, could replace Jamison Crowder potentially next year. And then Simi Cobbs, who's a personal draft favorite of mine, wasn't drafted, but he's a guy like Josh Doxson where he doesn't really get separation, but he's 6'4" and he's got really good hands. So I think that there's some guys maybe that you'll see later in the season if there's injuries that could kind of emerge. I think it's a solid group.
Okay, so go across to the running backs, and looking back at 2017, the backfield, you had someone that AJ was huge on, Samaje Perine. So he had the most attempts with 175 for 603 yards and only one TD, averaged 3.5. You had always consistent when he's on the park, only had 10 games in Chris Thompson, 64 attempts. But he averaged 4.6 yards a carry, and also had 39 catches for 510 yards and 4 TDs. Rob Kelly, Fat Rob, 62 for 194, 3 TDs. Only averaged of 3.1 yards. He only had 7 games. And then your leading rusher for TDs in Kirk Cousins. So, look, we can talk about those guys, obviously, but you drafted Darius Geis, who I'm a massive fan of, and I've said it many a time that on his day, he is as good as Barkley. I prefer him to Barkley because Geist will run it between the tackles. He's not afraid of contact. He will take on contact. And that's a part of his game that I think he has that step over Barkley. And he does make cutting look so effortless. When he's on his game, he makes it look easy. So those guys that are still there from last year and the addition of Geist.
Yeah, I love Geist as well. I'm super high on him, and he slipped in the draft, and we picked him up. And Chris Thompson, hopefully, he can come back healthy. Beyond that, it's really a toss-up. I think at the end of the day, Pirine and a guy like Capri Bibbs or Byron Marshall, who was, he's just a guy I think they picked up from Philly who can catch the ball. I think they make the team. Rob Kelly is probably out, although apparently he lost some weight and has been working really hard in the offseason. Pirine was really disappointing last year, but I think this is all Darius Geis's a job now, and with Chris Thompson coming back as the third down back and kind of the matchup, the mismatch, if you will, out of the backfield, and the competition's open for the last two spots.
We actually, AJ's just been texting a friend of ours, John Sheps, who used to be on a podcast, and he just said, just talk about Geist. He's a massive fan as well. He just make it all about Geist, and look, I tend to agree with him, actually. But look, the tight ends, I've just written down here, please, for the love of God, stay healthy, Jordan Reed.
Yeah.
The guy is, outside of Gronk, on his day, he is the second best tight end in the NFL. Unstoppable. And look, behind him, I'm also a huge fan of Vernon Davis. And look, we know the connection that Vernon Davis has already got with Alex Smith, but that was in the days before electricity. It was some time ago. But look, how much of a difference, and look, it's going to be a fair difference, does a healthy Jordan Reed make to this offense?
Well, it makes a huge difference. I think the rest of the offensive staff have done a decent job when he's out in terms of moving things around and not running the offense through the tight end position. But when he's on the field, it's just such a matchup nightmare that teams have to account for him, and it just changes how defenses have to play. So he had toe surgery in the offseason. Apparently he says 100% better because he had some issues with his toes, and obviously he's got this pretty scary concussion history. So, hopefully he stays healthy. He doesn't need to play every game to make a difference. But, if not, and chances are that he's not going to play all 16 games, we've got Vernon Davis behind him, who's still going strong, and I think he's 34, something like that, and he's got the chemistry with Smith, and then a young guy, Jeremy Sprinkle, behind him. So when Reed's on the field, you're right, there's very few, if any, tight ends that present that type of mismatch, and he changes the game. But when he's not, I still think we can be okay. So I'm not too worried if he misses time, which is likely. But obviously the hope is that he plays a fair bit of the season for sure.
Yeah, you brought up the concussion, like the toe thing. You can probably live with. Like you might miss a week here, but that concussion, like, it's not like he's missed one game or two games with concussion. He's missed multiple. We're talking 4 or 5 games, aren't we? And when you start missing that many games, you're probably not long here for the NFL, are you? If you get one more. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of to the point, like you were saying, is one more, and that's pretty scary with all the ones that he's had. And he's even said there's been times where he's probably had them and it hasn't been documented, that sort of thing. So yeah, for sure, scary. I mean, hopefully he stays healthy, and hopefully that he's kind of able to train his body and play the game in a way that doesn't make him at risk for another one. But that's a concern as well.
Yeah. Okay, so you spoke quickly about the O-line, and you're right. They had 36 different combinations last season, which is absolutely staggering, really. So, and we all know that stability is the key for an offensive line. That's stating the obvious. So, look, give us a rundown of the good, the bad, the ugly, what happened to the line, the way the line looks this year, like whether or not you believe in the Pro Football Focus, the way they go about putting up their numbers, but they have you down as being the 12th best line this coming season. So how do they go about obtaining that after what we saw, 36 different combinations of last year?
Yeah, I would probably agree with PFF's 12th ranking, although, broken clock is still right twice a day. Not a huge PFF fan, but the group was really ravaged by injuries. I think all the starters this year were injured at some point last year. Morgan Moses and Trent Williams are two of the best bookend tackles in the league, and they both had surgery in the offseason to help them get healthier. And so they're in the process of recovering. And then we've got Brandon Sheriff, who's a Pro Bowl right guard. So I think that's a really solid foundation. And then Chase Roulier, who was a rookie last year. He was a 6th-round pick last year. He played well last year when he had to start, so now he's going to be the starter. So he's a question mark, but there's high hope for him. And then left guard, we were hoping to upgrade that position in free agency or the draft. We didn't. So we've got Sean Laval back, and he's proved okay, but that's definitely the weak link. So I would say center and left guard definitely could go south, and hopefully we don't have any injuries to our good player, our really studs on the line, which are Moses, Sheriff, and of course Trent Williams. So I think overall it's a solid group, but there's some question marks.
Okay, Aaron, what about if we touch on defense for a little bit? One of the things I think I mentioned at the top, but obviously the big area of need defensively was defending against the run, because the Redskins were the worst in the league against the run, and I think that's sort of largely been addressed. I mean, partly in Jonathan Allen is healthy, and that's a big assist. Obviously, the line was much better before he went out with his Liz Frank last year. You obviously Daron Payne, who you picked in the first round, and Matt Ioannidis, well, I think I've pronounced that correctly, who made a massive improvement last year. But I think all in all, I wonder if I should even put the linebacker group in with that, if we're sort of talking about defending the run. And the linebacker group is kind of, really underrated. As you said, Zach Brown was a massive off-season re-signing because he had a heck of a year last year, and you put him together with, Preston Smith and Ryan Kerrigan, who I think may have been one of the best pass-rushing linebacker duos in the entire league, and Mason Foster, who's just, he's just pretty consistent. So, like, that linebacker crew, together with what is hopefully going to be a healthy D-line, does look like it should be much improved.
Yeah, and I think they were playing really well the first 3 weeks of the season when everyone was healthy, and I think when Jonathan Allen was playing, Preston Smith had something like 5 sacks in 4 or 5 games, so he was averaging a sack a game. That's obviously really good.
Yeah.
And I love Jonathan Allen. I thought he was the best player. I thought he was better than Myles Garrett, actually, in 2017, so I was ecstatic that we got him. And Daron Payne, I think, is a solid player. So the team statistically against the run and I think overall defensively should be much better than last year and should really be an above average unit in the entire NFL if guys can stay healthy. Everyone doesn't need to stay healthy. There's some depth on there, but we really got the short end of the stick with injuries last year with Allen, and Mason Foster was hurt, Zach Brown was hurt, and we had a bunch of injuries in the secondary too with Josh Norman, all that kind of stuff. So I think when it comes to defending the run, it's not just the D-line, it's not just the front seven, it's really everybody, the corners, the safeties as well. But it starts up front for sure, and then just that addition of Payne in the middle, and Matt Ioannidis coming back healthy, Jonathan Allen coming back healthy, and then you've got guys like Stacey McGee, Phil Taylor, who got hurt last year also before week 1, and Tim Settle, who we drafted, is another big body, 350-pound hunk of man missile. So yeah, I think it should be a much improved group. Guys just need to stay on the field.
Yeah, and we already sort of touched on the NFC East, but the Cowboys obviously, with a healthy Zeke, not suspended for 2018, and with the Giants with OBJ back on the field and with Saquon Barkley. And of course, the Eagles, I mean, like, I wouldn't necessarily put them in the category of like a strong running team, but I mean, the offense as a whole is scary. So it's like, it's a division where you need to be on your game as far as defense, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really scary. And I think I would be a lot more scared in prior years where we didn't have the depth and kind of the top tier talents, first round picks and stuff like that on defense. I still think that they're definitely going to be, we play 6 division games, so there's definitely going to be games where we get gashed, especially if there are injuries or, just people have off days, whatever. With that amount of talent, like you said, with Giants have Odell and Saquon Barkley and all these guys, and the Cowboys with Zeke, and the Eagles just kind of multi-headed rushing attack and Carson Wentz back there and everything. So yeah, I mean, I think teams are going to in the NFC East are going to get theirs, even if the Redskins defense is improved. But for sure, you need a solid run defense in this division because the other teams are just absolutely stacked.
Yeah. The defensive backfield, I think there's a couple of question marks you might be able to help me out with. Obviously, Josh Norman on one side is a lock. DJ Swearinger is a lock in the middle. I think at the moment it looks like Monte Nicholson. I don't know a whole lot about him. And maybe opposite Josh Norman, I think it might be a bit of a question mark. Maybe Quentin Dunbar, but maybe a bit of a rotation on that side. Yeah,
so you're right. Right now, as it stands, and just the sense I get from the team, you've got Josh Norman obviously at one cornerback spot, and then their hope is that they get Quentin Dunbar, who's a converted wide receiver, but he switched his number, so now he was 47 before, and now he's 23, which is a real cornerback number with D'Angelo Hallwar on the Redskins. So the hope is that he takes the next step and becomes actually a really solid outside corner. The Redskins are really, really high on him. And then at safety, it's going to be DJ Swearinger and Monte Nicholson. Monte Nicholson was a rookie last year and blew the doors off the combine. I mean, he is probably in the 95th percentile or something as far as combine testing for DBs. So he's got the physical makeup. The question was always, can he be physical? Can he, play the position in the NFL? And I think all credit goes to him and then our new DBs coach, Torian Gray. And he was a really pleasant surprise last year. So he's got all the physical tools, and he just needs to kind of come along this year. But if he's able to continue and build on his rookie season, he'll be starting as well. And then behind them, we've got some exciting corner talent, and they may need to step up at some point due to injury or what have you. But as far as nickel corner, that's probably going to be Skandrick, who signed in free agency from the Cowboys.
Yeah, no, I didn't mention them, Skandrick and obviously McPhee, who sort of feel like depth pieces, but you need that. In a long NFL season, injuries can really knock you around, and those guys are probably going to be quite handy.
Yeah.
Now, it's always hard, especially there's been a lot of change, but it's always hard to kind of, and especially in this division. I mean, what's your gut feel at this point in time, Aaron? Like, what do you think the Redskins are going to do record-wise this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a homer, obviously, so my opinion is biased, but I do get really the sense on paper it's the best team I've seen I don't remember in how long, but it's the best team on paper I've seen that the Redskins have had. I think it's a very hungry team and a quietly confident team. So I do think they'll find a way to win more games than they lose, and even though the NFC is stacked, I think they're one of the teams that find a way to make it into the playoffs somehow. It probably won't be by winning the division, but maybe they get in the wild card. So I think 10-6 is my pick. They've got a little bit easier draw this year because they did finish third in the division, so they get to play a little bit weaker schedule. From our perspective right now, obviously things can change. A little bit weaker schedule, so they get that advantage. But they still have a tough schedule. But I think 10-6 is my prediction.
Okay. I reckon every person we've spoken to has had their team at 10-6 except the Patriots.
Default, like, Homer biased pick. They always see the glass as half full. So we'll see how it shakes out. I think that was my AJ. I think that was my prediction last year too. So 10-6.
It may have been. Look, it's a season of optimism, isn't it? So everybody is.
Everyone is undefeated in the offseason.
That's right. And just to round us out, so one of the things that we've been asking everybody this year for our previews is, who do you think a locker room guy is for the Redskins? Like, it can be, you could pick one on offense, one on defense, or just one guy if it comes to mind. But like, who's kind of that motivational glue in the locker room for the team?
Yeah, I'll go one offense, one defense. I mean, I think on offense, honestly, Alex Smith, I think the guys are rallying around him. Granted, I mean, training camp, day 3, the first day in pads is just starting as we speak. So after this, I'll be checking Twitter and all that kind of stuff. But the first 2 days, people have been raving about Alex Smith, how he's a leader. People are saying, "Oh, this is what a real quarterback is like." I'm serious. I mean, only players are actually saying that, and people are still kind of throwing some shade on Cousins, if you will, even though he's gone. So I think the team guys really like Alex Smith, and he's been that leadership role. He's had the pressure of being the number 1 overall pick and all the expectations, and so I do think the team will rally around him quite a bit. And then on defense, locker room guy, I think you've got to go with DJ Swearinger, who was a captain last year and really is a natural leader of the defense and the leader of men. So, yeah, he's a guy that's really outspoken and the guys respect, and he plays well on the field, and he kind of leaves it all out there.
Perfect. Well, Aaron, that sort of puts a bow in it, and that's fantastic. So thank you so much for your time, and people can certainly follow your work at Hogshaven, which is the SB Nation blog, and I know that because I was sort of trawling through it just a couple of hours ago, but you've got like training camp updates and all sorts of stuff that's going up there, so there's a lot of content on there for people to check out.
Yeah, we've got a great team of writers at Hogshaven, and everything that you need to know about the Redskins, training camp updates, all that kind of stuff will be at hogshaven.com. And
just quickly, just popped into my head, how long will they remain the Redskins?
In terms of the name?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. That's the $1 million question, or the $1 billion question. I think for the foreseeable future, they've kind of had everything in terms of legally lawsuits and all that kind of stuff dropped or resolved, whatever the case may be. So I think eventually, I don't know how many years it'll be, but eventually there could be some name change. As long as Dan Snyder is the owner, though, and they're one of the most valuable sports franchises in the entire world, not just NFL, but as long as the money is there with the names and the brand that they've built, it'll be the Redskins. And but eventually down the road, when Dan Snyder's gone, sure, there could be a change. I don't know when that'll be, though.
Yeah, I just asked because I remember how, what was it, 12 months ago, or maybe 2 years ago, when it all boiled up, didn't it, with everything that was going on, and there's still commentators and people in all walks in the NFL that just won't refer to them as the Redskins. They just call them Washington.
Yep, yeah. A lot of writers or websites like Bleacher Report, I think, just says Washington, which I think is kind of silly. But yeah, there's been some like lawsuits and stuff like that that have come against the team, just discrimination, things like that. But I think they've all been dropped. So from a legal standpoint, there's nothing anybody can do, and I think most people are fine with it. And but again, we'll see. I think for the foreseeable future, though, it'll stay. Everything will stay the same.
Okay, Aaron, listen, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll let you enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, guys, get some sleep. Thanks, AJ. Thanks, G. Had a really fun time with you guys.
No, great having you on, and maybe the dog, after it stops panting, mate, just take it out and you wipe the sweat off your brow, take it for another walk.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. That was our Redskins preview, G. All wrapped up.
Mate, fantastic. I didn't speak to him last year. So.
No. Fantastic to speak to. And as I said, check out Hogshaven. They've got lots of content, just like, pretty much, I was going to say daily training camp updates, but more than that. So lots of people writing articles and content.
Just another lucky bugger sitting in the warmth.
Yeah. We don't need our noses rubbed in it, but, it'll be soon enough. It'll be spring. It'll be lovely.
Yeah, like we said there, Aaron off air, is that, we complain about the cold and then summer gets here and then we complain about the heat. So we're never really happy, are we?
No, exactly. Okay, so another team preview. As I always say, thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you're enjoying these and what you think of them. Or not. We always appreciate that because it's a long haul doing all of the team previews. It, takes a bit of time.
Some of us take some time off and take a holiday in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's true. But anyway, I'll sign off. So on behalf of G and myself, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.